Rucham Abayim, dear Chabura, Kola Torah Kula, going through the entire Torah Shebal Peh with the Rambam in our lead, one Perek a day, and we are about to begin Perek Vav, which is the second Perek and final Perek of Hilchas Mezuzah before we move into the halachas of a Sefer Torah. And today we're going to zero into the halachas of what type of room requires a Mezuzah, and it's very, very closely connected to the usage of the room and also to the doorway in which you're going to place the Mezuzah. The doorway consists of two doorposts and a lintel, the top of it. So let's see. There are 10 conditions in a house. Once these conditions are met, the one that lives there is required to affix a mezuzah. If one of the conditions is missing, this will make him exempt from the chiyuv of placing a mezuzah. The 10 conditions are as follows. I'm first going to list them and then gonna zero into the details of each one of them. First one, it has to have at least the empty ear space of 4 ames by 4 ames, 4 cubits by 4 cubits. A yasser or more. It has to have 2 doorposts. It has to have a lintel. It shouldn't just be a ches in the middle of nowhere, like a doorway, but not going into any room. It has to actually have a roof. It should have doors. The Rabbi disagrees. This doesn't need to have doors. That's only for a case that you need to know heker tzir, on which side to put the mezuzah, and then the way the door opens, that will define which is the main room it's going into, and it's yimin hanichnas. It's on the right hand side of the person going into that room. For that case, you need a door, but not that always you need a door. Anyways, this doorway and this ches needs to be at least 10 tefachim high or more. Via bayis choil, the usage of this room is mundane, regular, and via asu there's adam. It has to be fitting for humans to live there. The asu there's covered, and it's made for respectful usage. The asu there's keva, and it's made for permanent usage. So let's see examples of what is invalid, and we'll understand what is required. Halacha base. So, if it doesn't have 4 by 4 ames, patur min hamezuzah. Now, what happens if it's 2 by 8? So it's rectangular, but it has the ear space that would exist in a 4 by 4. It will still be chayiv. If it has enough space in which if you would square it out, it would be able to fit 4 ames, even if it's round or it's like a hexagon, whatever, it doesn't matter. Even though currently it's round, the Balchamer Zav is like a stop sign, doesn't matter. Much more so if the only problem it has is the length are bigger than the square, but it has arba ames, definitely chayv. As long as it has the possibility of squaring it out to 4 ames by 4 ames, chayv mezuzah. This room will require mezuzah. Now, achsadra is this corridor, but before you come into the house, like a lower porch. It's just for beauty purposes. No one's not asu l'dira. It could even have 3 walls. Let's say the door of the house, and then a gate on this side, a gate on this side. And not only that, it even has tirsa pesach. It has 2 beautiful pillars in the front on which the roof is seated. Even if it has 2 pillars on the fourth side, which means the entranceway, still patur min hamezuzah. This corridor, this achsadra, will be patur from the mezuzah. Why? These pillars are not there to form a doorway. They're just to hold up the roof, and the roof is just there for shading purposes and a nice entranceway to the house. It's not, yeah. So they weren't made as mezuzahs. Now, besides the room not being made for that purpose, there's another detail that's important. Be'etzem, any doorway, even if right now this room is not made for diras adam, if it leads into a room that's diras adam, for example, this house, the corridor opens to the front door, which opens to, ultimately, if you go deeper in, there's a bedroom. All the doors will hence be chayiv obligated mezuzah. And therefore, the reason why this achsadra's patur is also because it's not a tzuras pesach. They're just made for beauty, not just the usage of the room, but it's not a real doorway, period. It's just you put 2 pillars for beauty. In fact, it's holding a roof that doesn't turn it into a doorway. So what happens if you have roof, but it's not sitting on walls altogether. It's just sitting on pillars. Like the Cardo in Yerushalayim, those outdoor Rosh Hashanah that they would have a whole bunch of pillars and just a roof, but there's no walls. Even though when you look at it, you feel like you're in a room, and it could look like there's so many. It's a room. Torah, it is part of mezuzahs. There are no mezuzahs. There are no doorposts. It's just for beauty, holding up a roof. Halacha dal. What happens if it has two doorposts, but instead of having a straight lintel, it has v'kipa kamin keshes al shtei mezuzahs. It's holding up like a dome-like lintel. In the place of the lintel, but many times they put in stones at an angle. They cut them beautifully, and they all fit into each other, and it sits. They pressure. They sit perfectly. So, is there any problem that the mashkef is not flat? The answer: if the doorposts themselves have the required height of 10 tefachim, so I don't care what shape the lintel is, whether it's diagonal, like in Sharatedding the Harabayis, or if it's round or it's straight, the same thing, you're going to be chai. However, remain by Masarat Tfachim, if it does not have 10 Tfachim in the pillars of the sides, rather, let's say it has 6 Tfachim, and the dome will together reach 10 Tfachim, and that's why you feel maybe it's chayit, because the height of these doorposts, which combine into, reaches 10 Tfachim, the answer is no, because if you're combining the height of that dome to be considered part of the doorpost, then you have no top on top. If it doesn't have a mashkef. Hey, what happens if it's a room and it has walls and it has a doorpost, but part of the roof caved in, or it has its canvas, whatever it is? Zokter. The Rambam says, if it doesn't have any ceiling, potter. If some of it has a roof, and some isn't, says Rambam here, it's my opinion, says Rambam, if on the side of the doorpost, that's where you have the roofing, then in that case it is chayav mezuzah, and first set up doorways, and then set up a door, and it'll be chayav mezuzah, because then it's closed, it's a room. Halacha, hey, Harabayis, talking of the Beis HaMikdash, we just said be'etzem, it has to be l'shimush chol, for mundane, not for kodesh. And therefore, Harabayis, halashachas, v'azoros, all the outside offices and courtyards, and for that matter, every shul and Beis Medrash, she'ein ben Beis Dira, which inside of this Beis Medrash, there's no place for personal usage and or living quarters. Turim, it's potter, l'fishem kodesh, they're holy, they're not mundane. Beis HaKnesset shel kfarim, the shuls of villages, that they had a hegdish inside, so if a visitor to town, he would sleep in that little room. Chayiv mezuzah. Not only that room is chayiv, the whole shul, because they lead into that, they're connected, and they open up into that room. And same deal, a shul of very big cities, metropolitan, like big ones. Boy, Beis Dira, if in the shul there happens to be living quarters, there's an apartment for the chazan that comes, the chveis for the bachram shluchim that are there to fill the menu, whatever it is. Chayiv, it's obligated for him to have a mezuzah. Kol sharm migdash loyal mezuzahs. To the extent that all the gates to the Beis HaMikdash did not have mezuzahs, chutz mishar nekenar, because that one led into a doorway. That was a doorway that led into a place where one of them did have living quarters, which is where the Kohen Gadol would live in the 7 days that he was preparing for Yom Kippur, called Lishkas Palhedrin. So from Shara Niknar and inward, Lishkas Parhedrin. Parhedrin was a derogatory nickname they called this room. Parhedrin is like the temporary elected officials, because then they would buy their way into the position of Kohen Gadol. So the Rebbe learns, the positivity, the Rebbe learns from them and says, look how amazing a Yiddish neshama is. Every time they would go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, if you had one machshavas chutz, bam, he was out. They connected them with a chain and they would pull them out. For that reason, maybe he's going to have a machshavas chutz. These people knew. The track record is in the second half of the Bayis Sheni, they were all dying. Every person that bought his way into it, they were paying money and they knew they're going to die. He says, that's a neshama. The neshama yearns for Kodesh HaKodashim. Even if he's off and he doesn't have the right way to get there, still, that's a neshama. Weiter. So vishalishkas, they all had mezuzahs. Vishalishkas, and vishalishka azoy. So it's a base there. The kohen gadol. This was the living quarters of the kohen gadol, which we have Rosh on the 7 days that he was separated from his family in preparation for the great day. Halacha zayin. Now it has to be for base dira. So base of tevin, a place where they store a storage for straw. Base of bakar, with like a barn. Base of eitzim, they would keep firewood. Base of oitzers, all different storages of food, like and the like. Turim and mezuzah. They are exempt from having a mezuzah. Shneimar beisecha, your house, ba'isam yuchad lecha, specifically for people. Prat la'elu, this excludes all those man, all these that we mentioned and similar to them. Now, leficha, for this reason, if it is designated also for people's use, for example, a barn, but in those days, the women would spend the entire day in the field, maybe planting, harvesting, and the like. And before they would go home, they would go. I guess they would beautify themselves. They would braid their hair. They beautify themselves over there. Why? It has also been designated for a person's usage. Now, Beis Shar, when we're talking about a entranceway or achsadra, corridor, or merpeses, and a porch, vagina, and a garden, vadir, and a shtal, like a barn. It's not meant for people to be there, right? This Beis Shar, this entranceway, this little room, if it doesn't open directly, we're talking about like this case is like a butka, a little house for a watch guard. So it doesn't open into the rest of the house, and therefore it doesn't become obligated because you don't have to go through there to get to the rest of the house. So because this butka is not meant, well, in this case it is, but in a case that it's a garden, just a plant, they don't want people stepping there, or it's a porch to go through, or it's just a walkway. So it's part of the it's not made for permanent use to dwell there. And the royal rule that I referred to already a few times, if there's any places that are obligated to have mezuzah, they're open to this room from which you'll get from this room into there, this will require also this Beis Shar to have a mezuzah. Lefichach, this teaches you the gateways into a courtyard are going into a alley that has a dead end, so there's a whole bunch of chatzeros opening into medinas, or even countries, vayeres, and cities. Hakol chayav mezuzah. In a case that they're all closed, this is the way to get in. So like the ghetto in Prague, if you're ever there, these type of ghettos, the walls, the door open up into all these courtyards. So hakol chayav mezuzah are all obligated. And even more than that, Zakter. Afilu asara batim, even if there are 10 rooms, one room into the next room, and the only one that's fit for the deepest room in the end, that's where the guy would sleep. Everything is obligated. This is kol chayam mipnei amru. For this reason, they said that shara pasuach menagin al chatzer, a gateway that opens from the garden into the courtyard. If that's the way to get into the courtyard, then it also is chayim b'mezuzah, even though it's just for planting. Halacha test. Now, it has to be for respectful usage. So Beis HaKisei, a bathroom. Beis HaMerech, a bathhouse. Beis HaTvila, Beis HaMerech, a bathhouse. Beis HaTvila is where the mikveh or yitevil. Beis HaBirsaki is a tanner place where they would soak the hides. They just came from Hilchas Tefillin. Even if people stay there and they open their office and they open their shop there, doesn't matter. It's not a place that's a pleasant smell. For example, a tanner, and it's not respectable. Now, sukkahs chag b'chag. Sukkah on sukkahs, obayis besvina, or a little house that they set up shop in a boat. It's not there's keva. A sukkah is only for 7 days, and a guy opened this little butka on a boat. It doesn't turn it into a kavodik thing. And he brings another example. Once about they open shop by these marketplaces, this shuk day. So you have people would make a pop-up store, but it wasn't kavua; it was just temporary. So that would obviously not be chayv mezuzah. Now he gives an interesting scenario. You have a person had 2 pop-up stores. He has the front where everything's on display, and if someone gets excited and someone is lured into the socket to decide to buy taka, so he goes into the deeper store the deeper butke. The deeper butke was much more official, much more stable, steady, and permanent. So sukkah sheyetzim mezuzah mezuzah one hachitzayin of term and mezuzah l'fisha enakfor. The outside one is potter because it's not pot. You would say 1 second. It's chayiv because it leads into the deeper one. Could have been, but the fact is, being that it's not kavua, it's as if it's not even there, and therefore that one is potter. The inside one is chayiv. All these little pop-up stores, in the marketplaces, they're not a fixed, steady, and permanent for dwelling. Halacha Yud, has a whole bunch of entrances, and he says, "Listen, I only use the front door. I don't have all these security exits. I don't use them." He only uses one specific one. Still, chayiv lasais mezuzah b'chol Pesach Pesach. Each door requires its own mezuzah. Pesach katan shebein bayis la'aliyah. There's a house and a second floor, and there's like a little door, so you climb up steps and you go into the next floor. Chayiv mezuzah. It seems like it was a small door in the steps, something like you're climbing up the steps and there's in the wall going into another room. It wasn't a whole official gateway. So like those attic doors, and you climb up steps and you crawl into a side. So it's also chayiv. Chayiv is also cheder shebebayis. Afilu cheder becheder. A room in a house, or a room in a house. Chayiv lasem mezuzah. It's you have to make a mezuzah al shar cheder apnimi. Also in the inside one. Val shar cheder hachitza, and outside, also the outside room. Val shar bayis shekul nasoin ladira ukvoin. The whole house becomes a place kavod, regardless of which one is the main one and which one uses the other. That turned into a whole house. It's not like the chsadra that's only if it's leading in or the like. Halacha Yudal. Pesach shebein beis hamedrash beis haknesses ubeisa. What happened? We said already. We established a beis knesses, beis medrash is for kodesh, and therefore it's not chayiv. But what happens if he has a door from the beis knesses to his house? Im ragil lotzis lava. Pesach chayiv mezuzah. If you actually use it, you chayiv mezuzah. Pesach shebein shnei batim. Now you want to know which side to put the mezuzah on. Okay, you have 2 rooms or 2 houses, and there's a door between them. One door. So we know the mezuzah is supposed to be affixed on yamin hanichnas, on the right side of the person going in, but you're not sure which one is going in. To go into this house, the right side is this side. To go into the other house, the right side is that side. So what do? So there's a fancy halachic term called heker tzir. It literally means the sign, the indication of the hinge. But what that tells you is the hinge swings. So if the door opens, it opens into one of the rooms or one of the houses. The one it opens into, that is seemingly the more important one. That's the one that it's intended to go into, and therefore that takes the cake. You're going to have to put it on the right side, the one going into the heker tzir one. So we follow the indicator, which is the hinge, the place where the hinge is seen together with him, which means when you go in, the hinge opens up even more because it's going into the opposite room, as opposed to if it would be. Anyways, the side that the hinge opens up to, that you see it, that is sham koivin and samazuzah. Over there, you affix the mezuzah. Now, v'heichem koivin and samazuzah. Now, in the doorway itself, where in the doorway do you affix the mezuzah? Zakta b'soichal shal Pesach. First detail is within the hollow space, the empty ear space of the doorway. It has to be closer to the outside. So let's say once upon a time I was in Gamla. These thick walls, they had them all just stones piled up. It's not even with the, So thick wall. It should be the tefach that's closer to outside of the house. At the beginning, split the height into 3. At the beginning of the top third, from the bottom upward, it should be sitting on the top third. Higher than that, it's still going to be kosher as long as it is 1 tefach away from the lintel. It's not too close to the ceiling. It's going to be kosher. It is in the right hand side. It is invalid if you did it on the left side. Of the house doesn't belong to one person, it belongs to partners, still chayv mezuzah. Chayev, now the inspiration for the last seif of the entire series of Hilchos Mezuzah. A person has to be very careful in regards to a mezuzah. It's everybody's responsibility at all times, not just when you're walking in. It's always your responsibility. Because man shikanos yetze, even more so. Every time you go in and out, what this is helping, this assists you in remembering the Eibishter. Yivka b'yichud Hashem. You so to speak bump into and you meet the oneness of the Eibishter. Shmoish l'kadosh baruch Eibishter's name. V'yiskar abasai. This will remind you again, as the theme of this entire sefer, remind you the love that we have for the Eibishter. The Yer Mishnasei. This will awaken him from his slumber, Shgiyosav, and his getting carried away b'havle azman, in the emptiness of time. The Yeda, and this will remind him. It'll send him with understanding. She'ein davar omed la'olam la'olam elamim. There's nothing that stands forever. Eli, this Torah olam. The only everlasting existence is the knowledge we can have of the Eibishter, that mitzvah. This pulls him right back onto track. Goes in positive, upright ways. Our first sages have taught us. Anyone has tefillin on his head, and on his arm, and he has tzitzis on his clothing, on his garments, mezuzah and a royal mezuzah affixed to his doorpost. Murzak, it is established, and you could be quite confident he won't sin, because again, there's a whole bunch of reminders. They are the angels, the guardian angels that Eibishter gifted us with, granted us, that will guard us from sin. The Malach, the angel of Hashem, dwells and rests around those that fear him by Yechaltzim, and it saves them. Brich Rachmana, the sign, blessed is the Eibishter that helps us and helped us reach this very special point of concluding Hilchos Mezuzah. Thank you so very much for being with us. Yishakayach to our dedicated tech team led by Reb Levi Nimirovsky. Have a phenomenal evening.